Hello everybody and welcome back to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Max Hayes, your host, and as Forest beat Ipswich 4-2 to step even closer to that Champions League football next season. We will discuss the game, as always, standout players for the Reds and the final run-in for Forest with 9 games to go. It's 9 remaining cup finals to make sure that Forest can get over the line as what been a brilliant season so far. To discuss all of that, joined by 2 brilliant guests, and nice to have one of them back after a bit of a short break. And I was just saying before we came on air, 2 of the biggest talkers, so you're in for a treat on your Monday afternoon as we do this live Monday evening. Joined first of all by the birthday boy, Mr. Astbury. How are we, Dave?
Yeah, good as gold, mate. Thank you.
Do you know, I was looking last minute for a little sound jingle that we could get. Do you know what, Dave? I was trying to find him. I'll let... it's still going. It's still going. It's still going. We'll get... blow out your candles, Dave. We'll get...
I'm too asthmatic, Max. I can't blow them out. I've got asthma, mate. You know what I mean?
I'll let you into a secret, Dave. I was trying to find little sound jingles and they're all like high-pitched girls like screaming happy birthday, and I thought that will blow the listeners' ears off. So
yeah, it's used to that sound.
It blew my mind, Max.
So so there you go. And I'll let you even into a bigger secret, Dave. I tried to get someone from Forest to send you a birthday message in time, but I can't lie, mate. It was a bit delayed and we couldn't get it over the line. I wanted to get one of the players to send you something during this. So you never know. It might come your way in the next few days. Happy birthday, mate. Thanks for joining us on your birthday.
Yeah, I mean, they, bless them, are lovely lads, and they are the loveliest bunch of lads anywhere in the league. They gave me a lovely birthday present on Saturday, 3 points. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, mate, you made the trip to Ipswich, so those 3 points were an early birthday present for you. Also joined by Mark Turner from sunny Stateside. Mark, nice to see you, mate, back in your usual position as pundit. Thanks for hosting the other week while I was sunning it up in Tenerife, wherever I was. How are you, mate? And how do you assess Forest the last few weeks since you've been away from the pod?
Good to see you. Happy birthday, Dave.
Thank you, mate.
Delighted to be back in the pundit's chair. It's too much responsibility hosting this thing, but I'm doing well, mate. I am absolutely buzzing. You mentioned that Forest have 9 cup finals. I would argue optimistically that they have 12 through the rest of the Premier League season and all the way to Wembley in the FA Cup. So let's keep the positivity up. And yeah, I'm feeling good, mate. I'm fresh off the back of a Premier League fan zone appearance here just a few months ago. So, repping for the Reds.
Very nice, Mark. I'm glad you were representing Forest all over the world. Was that for the Premier League fan? Is that like a Premier League equivalent for what? Like, is it Sky or?
I have no clue. I literally had something reach out from the WhatsApp group from the Nottingham Forest North American supporters group over here saying, "Anyone fancy this?" I said, "Yeah, I can probably squeeze it in. I've got Max Hayes already on the calendar, but I can bump him out."
Push us back a bit.
Jumped in, 3 minutes of glory. Got put on the spot. They asked me who my player of the season was, which is something we need to address here at some point, Max. We need to have that conversation. It was almost impossible, and they wouldn't let me off the hook. So I literally went for a player I think has been outstanding, value for money, and who I just absolutely love to bits, and that's Ola Aina.
Very good. Very good answer. Tell you what, there's going to be it's going to be hard to choose when we do our end of season awards, and we'll discuss it a little bit actually later on. So I was going to mention kind of your early player of the season actually, Mark. So you take the words out of my mouth. Right, let's get going, shall we? And we'll discuss the trip to Portman Road on Saturday. 4-2 win, 3-0 at half time. Not often Forest kind of go all guns and blazing and have that kind of result already at half time. Not saying the game was sealed, but we were pretty confident. Dave, we'll start with you. Just your thoughts from the away ends. I mean, you follow Forest pretty much every single game. I wasn't there on Saturday. I mean, just at the minute, we're going away from home. You're confident. You feel like Forest are going to get a result and do it quite ruthlessly, as we did on Saturday. It was an unchanged 11. What do you make of it?
It's terrific, mate. And Forest are so unorthodox. I love it. You know, in this day of like obsession about possession, Forest just lie there in wait, and they are a sod to play against. The other 19 can't deal with them. Honestly, I've been watching a few nature programs recently, and there's like, I was watching a thing about Australian funnel web spiders, right? They set traps, they lie there, they don't do very much, and all of a sudden they spring out and kill off their prey. And forests are like that. I mean, at the weekend,
good analogy.
At the weekend for about half an hour, forests were relatively passive. They just did enough. They kind of just marshalled Ipswich, who have got great intentions. I like Ipswich. I like Kieran McKenna. They have good intentions. And Forest waited for their moment. And then, boom, in the blink of 7 minutes, a sort of a mini Newcastle, if you like, they were 3-0 up. And, second half, they managed the game really, really well. Again, Ipswich never gave up. But all through the game, and it's been a thing, having watched quite a lot of Ipswich Town games, they're going to give you a chance. And the best team in the country at the moment, and snaffling those opportunities with clinical efficiency and an economy of movement on Nottingham Forest. And it's just great to see. I mean, we were talking just before we came on. I watched Liverpool yesterday, bang average. Arsenal, bland. Manchester City the other week, one of the most boring teams I've seen in years. I'd argue to say that over the last couple of weeks, we've gone back to being the best team in the country. There's an unusual certainty about Nottingham Forest. I mean, where you kind of feel they're going to create something and they're going to make something of it. And Saturday was, there was a little bit of nerves to start with because Ipswich was seeing quite a lot of the ball, and Hutchinson's lively and Delap's, runs through brick walls and Cizo's a good lad, Villagine, they've got some good players at Ipswich. But then within the space of like the blink of an eye, it was all over. And it was one of those lovely afternoons where you could just relax knowing the result was in the bag. And terrific result. Great credit to Nuno and a great credit to all the lads, mate. It's excellent.
Yes, I agree. It was brilliant. Quite a few people watching live on YouTube and Facebook, Nottingham Forest News, Garibaldi Red. So do keep the comments coming. This one from Kieran, I think 4 wins and 2 draws will get us the Champions League. Come on, you Reds. This one, choosing a player of the season is going to be hard. It's a bit like asking a parent who is their favourite child. Well, if you ask my mum and dad, the answer's probably quite easy. It would be me.
Mate.
Probably be you, Dave. Yeah, probably be you, mate. It's definitely Alex. Lisa always jokes, doesn't she? Our good friend Lisa to the podcast. She always jokes. They call me, they call Alex just favourite son Alex, and I'm just the forgotten one. Right. Mark, actually, just staying on Dave's point, particularly about kind of how we're a bit unpredictable. I mean, an interesting comparison to Australian funnel web spiders. We love your analogies, Dave. But he's right, isn't he, really? And Forest do have that sense of unpredictability about them. And even though it was an unchanged 11, yes, Ipswich are down there struggling. Yes, they've had a pretty poor season. But it's never an easy game. And Forest just kind of almost went about their business as usual on Saturday. And those 7-8 minutes of almost, not madness, but just flurry of attack and Anthony Elanga doing what Anthony Elanga does, that's what gets Forest results. And that almost symbolises what we've been doing this season.
I'm going to wait for the Nottingham Forest fan who's better at impressions than I am to give us to actually give us footage of Forest springing like they did against Ipswich this last weekend with a David Attenborough narration over the top. Nottingham Forest waiting to spring the attack, and here they go. Very difficult match. Anyway, Dave, you kill me, mate. So a couple of things. Firstly, and this isn't humble pie per se, because I think you and I, Max, were both critical of Anthony Elanga earlier in the season, and rightly so. We felt like his decision-making was a little off, and for as dangerous as he could be, there wasn't much end product. He has absolutely made us eat our words in the right way. Again, I think the criticism was warranted, but also, my word, has he turned his season on its head. And he is now delivering time. And again, whether it's assists, whether it's goals, and also just how important he's become to the entire offensive build-up. He's not a one-trick pony. He's not out there hugging the line now. He's drifting across from left to right. He's tucking in behind Wood. He's he's become so versatile. Possibly the most improved player in the second half of the season. So I was delighted for him this last weekend. Something else as well, Max, I want to talk about just briefly. I know it's the way of football, and this is not just in England. This happens in Spain, this happens in Italy, certainly happens in Germany, but dynasties are boring. They just are. Like, I'm old enough, Dave's in the same boat. We can remember coming up in the 70s and 80s when Liverpool owned the shop. Right then in the 80s and 90s, it was Manchester United. And Max, sort of in your era, it's been Man City. And it's just, they win bloody everything. And it's so boring. And that was one of the things that attracted me to Forest as a nipper, despite the fact I didn't come from Nottingham, was, that feisty little club that was punching above their weight, that was taking down the big boys, that was beating the odds. And I love it right now. We've been bemoaning the fair play rules, the financial fair play rules over the last 5 or 6 seasons. But actually, you know what? I'm starting to turn about heel on that. I'm starting to think it's actually leveling the playing field. And I love seeing Forest now up in third. And I love seeing Fulham and Bournemouth and Brighton. And I know they're not a small team per se, but an underperforming team, Newcastle, actually showing up now at the top end of the table, competing for trophies. I think it's fantastic, and long may it continue. I didn't answer your question about Ipswich, but Dave already covered that in his 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. No, I agree, Mark, and that's why I thought yesterday it was lovely to see Newcastle lift the trophy. I don't really see how any Forest fan. I mean, Forest are obviously now knocked out by the winners. We can add that to our list of achievements this season. But in terms of that game, I thought Liverpool looked off it. In fact, Dave, you put something on your Facebook or something yesterday, and I commented, didn't I, saying that Newcastle fully deserved it, and I thought Liverpool looked completely off it, and worthy winners for them. So well done to the Geordies, and well done to the Geordie Nation. It was a good trip up there the other week when we were in the mixed pubs and bars and everything. They are a very good bunch. Dave wanted to talk.
Max, did you see the picture of Elliot Anderson in the crowd yesterday?
Yeah, I did, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was great. He's a homegrown lad. Yeah. He's obviously from the area, born and bred. He's a big Newcastle fan. He still acts professional when he's a footballer. Every footballer or manager's got a team that their allegiance lies to. So yeah, absolutely brilliant that he was in the away end, and and I think he was there, kind of hugging his dad or something, wasn't he? So special moment for him. Loved it. Dave, let's talk Milenkovic. He gets on the score sheet again, really. 4 goals from him. Someone said to me this weekend, he almost took that first goal, the goal he scored against Ipswich. He took it like a bit of a striker's finish, where he kind of gets it down, the touch and the absolute kind of power behind the strike to give Forest the lead. I mean, how vital has he been, obviously, defensively for Forest? And again, on Saturday, and we'll get on to him and Murillo, and maybe Milenkovic is obviously well within a shout for player of the season this season. But in terms of him actually scoring goals, for a central defender, 4 goals isn't bad. And, he seems to be that threat, not just aerially, but also just in and around the box. And obviously, he gets on the score sheet again.
He's a one-man army. And he is, without a shadow of a doubt, the best signing any club in this country, maybe on the surface of this planet, has made. 12 million from Fiorentina for him. And he has been so crucial. He's taken that which everybody perceived would be a nailed-on relegation struggler to a possible Champions League team. He is the captain of his country for a reason. He has presence. He is so down to earth. There's no fuss, no nonsense. I think his work ethic on and off the field has dragged the others up with him. I'm not saying they were poor. They've all been very good. But I heard Yatesy say, when you see Milenkovic in the gym, on the training ground, he's raised the level of everybody. I think he's an amazing player. I kind of had a feeling about him when I first saw him. I looked at him as a physical presence, and I thought, Forest are not going to be that little team pushed about anymore. And as the season has gone on, he sort of set his bedrock of defending and forming that partnership with Mu or Morato if needs be, or if it was Willie or whatever. They all seem to fit with him. Ola, Nico, Alex, all of these guys, right? So he set his stall out for defending and making us at least hard to beat. Now he's adding goals. And the finish on Saturday, from where I was sort of sat in the away end at Portman Road, it was kind of off to my right. And I didn't get, the subtle detail of what he did, because it's gone out to the far post. Callum's hooked it back. Nico's headed it back in. Liam Delap, Mr. Unsubtle, who I actually think's a really good lad. Actually, I like Delap. Has kind of flashed a header, and it's come at Milenkovic, relatively high velocity, on the knee. Boom! It's in the back of the net. And it's put there. It's put there with the authority that we've come to know and love about Nikola Milenkovic, right? And he's just he's a big guy, but he's a huge presence as well. And I think, there have been some transformative signings for us. I mean, chuck in Elliott. I love Elliott, the Geordie Maradona. Another humble lad getting on with his business, no fuss. But I do think Milenkovic is the signing of the season. And I've watched bits and bobs on the telly where they've been picking their team of the season to this juncture, and Milenkovic has been mentioned by the vast majority of the cognoscenti. I think he's an outstanding player, and I think he's an outstanding presence. You know what I mean? So I think he's a vital signing for us.
Yeah,
Max, I got to wade in there very, very quickly on Milenkovic because, and just echo everything Dave said. In fact, it's funny you mentioned about not having the best view of that goal, Dave, because I was momentarily distracted when that goal went in. I was watching it here at home. I don't know what I was doing, but I kind of turned my head back to the TV. And initially, I thought Chris Wood had scored that goal. And I thought he scored that goal because of how well it was taken. I'm like, that's a striker's goal. What a classy finish again from Wood. And then, of course, replay, it was Milenkovic. He's as wide as he is tall. He absolutely bosses that defence. In and of himself, a fantastic signing. But to Dave's point, he's also raised all ships around him. Max, we have a defence that's kept more clean sheets than any other in the Premier League, that has one of the best goals against records for 47 million quid. That's bonkers, mate. Like any other central defender in a top 8 Premier League team is costing that on their own. And I scratch my head and wonder how the captain of the Serbian national team, who's bossing it in Serie A, doesn't get snapped up by Man United or by Tottenham or by any other team that's leaking goals right now. It's absolutely crazy. So I agree with Dave. Phenomenal player in and of himself, but what he's done to elevate those around him is incredible. And then, as you said, Max, cherry on the icing on the cake, popping up with 4 goals and counting. I imagine that's also a driving force for Murillo as well, Max. I'm sure Murillo was like, God, I got to score more goals.
Here's a question mark. When you compare Milenkovic and Murillo, who's a better out-and-out defender? If you had to pick one, in your opinion.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I was wearing my Murillo Milenkovic Pulp Fiction shirt this weekend. One of my mates is a Arsenal supporter, and he and I went off to the Switchbacks game together. And he immediately spotted the T-shirt, and he was just waxing lyrical about our defence. This is from an Arsenal fan who arguably have the best central defensive pairing in England, possibly in the world, right? At the Emirates. And he was kind of going through, like in some detail, all the benefits of Milenkovic and Murillo and how they meshed together so well. And so it's difficult to answer that question, Max. I think in terms of traditional centre backs, you'd say Milenkovic, right? He has kind of the traditional physique and kind of set of skills that you would expect from a centre back. Murillo is maybe more of an inverted commas modern centre back. But I think it's the combination of the two that it's been so dominating this season. And again, not dissimilar to what they have at Arsenal with Saliba and Gabriel as well. So, yeah, be my take.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk Anthony Elanga. Of course, getting those 2 goals that puts Forest 3-0 up away from half-time. I'm just trying to get some stats up here because in fact, actually this, and I really like this point that someone made on social media, so I screenshotted, I did the classic kind of taking it off them, not saying that it's ours, so full credit to whoever put this out there. But they talked about kind of Elanga, and obviously, Mark, you mentioned it slightly at the start of the podcast. There was a period where he struggled massively this season. Nuno kind of has managed him almost to perfection. He's took him out for a bit. He gave him a bit of time to get his confidence back. Since then, since Nuno kind of gave him that bit of rest, we can all remember it, 5 goals and 7 assists in 16 games. He had the most contributions during that game against Ipswich as well in terms of creativity and passes and things like that. So you just look at the stats there and you think, what a player he was, what a player he still is. Obviously having that bit of blip for him to come back and still do very well. I mean, Dave, when you look at Forest, particularly in the final third, and we keep talking about it every week, but we have to because that's where all the goals are coming from. And you talk about us launching this plan and being like those spiders and being a bit unpredictable on the break. And Ipswich had to come at us, especially after the Milenkovic goal, and then that's where Elanga goes and gets his two. There were two excellent finishes. He ran onto them perfectly. He timed everything to perfection. They were two brilliant finishes, almost like striker instinct. And he is just such a crucial player. And we talk about interest in him. There was interest in him from Newcastle, funny enough. Obviously, was it in the last window? And there'll probably be interest again in him in the summer. But to keep hold of players like him, Callum, for next season, if Forest are going to be in these Champions League football and whatnot, they will be vital. And I mean, you just look at Manchester United and the mistake they've almost made from letting a player like him go.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I mean, I would question the unpredictability of Forest. I think Forest are really predictable. Forest have got the clearest identity of any team in this league. Have the ball. We're not bothered. Go on, you have it. We'll sit here in our deck chairs and have a cup of tea, and you can pass around for hours and hours. I mean, Manchester City more interested in being top of the possession league than actually winning matches, right? They really annoyed me in Manchester City the other way, and I'm so glad to beat them. The entitlement and the sheer conceit of Manchester City. Pass. And I was like looking at Manchester City at our place last week again. Well, are you going to do something with it? No, pass. You've got a great striker up front, give him the ball. No, can't be bothered. Whereas with Forest, everybody knows Forest at the bottom of the possession table. I love that. That's my favourite graphic, that possession table, right? And they're turning the conversation on its head. All of the conventions are being thrown out. It's like Forest said, we've had enough of this we're going to get rid of it and we're going to make it something different, right? So I think Forest are predictable. A bit like Callum Hudson-Odoi cutting in on his right foot and bending it to the far post is predictable. But can people stop him? No. Can people stop what Forest are doing? No. And I just think Forest, lots of these other teams, some of the ones in the middle, around whom actually, refreshingly, most of the conversation this season is about rather than the ones at the top and the ones at the bottom, some of them are still trying to work out what they are. Forest know exactly what they are, and everybody else in the division now knows what they are. When we had the Fulham Newcastle sort of little stutter, I was asked, it might have been on here, are people working Forest out? And I thought to myself, yeah, maybe they are. But now, a few weeks on, maybe they kind of relapsed and like, oh, we're not bothered about what Nottingham Forest do. Nuno knows exactly what he's doing. Every single man jack in that squad knows exactly what they're doing. We all know what we're doing. The whole club knows what it's doing, right? This is why when it comes to player of the season, every single one of them should get a trophy because they act as a unit. They are a single organism built of smaller parts. That is the beauty of Nottingham Forest at the moment. It's a family. None of them looks like a spare part, right? And Anthony has benefited from that family ethos. He was having a little wobble at the start of the season, maybe because we've grown to expect things from Anthony. His goal involvements last year was up there with Morgan's, right? So Anthony had set a bar. He wasn't quite reaching it. Nuno then, Uncle Nuno, Father Nuno, whatever, took him to one side. Look, Ant, just going to have a little chat here. Sat down with him, showed him some empathy. He came back in against Villa. He scored the winner, and he's gone off on a run. And at the moment, he's electric. And as Mark said, he's versatile. He isn't just that touchline hugging winger who's going to take his man, although he's good at it. I wouldn't like to have to be the bloke backpedaling to try and defend against him. And now he's being used subtly in and around Woody and allowing, so Nico Dominguez will go out on the right or and Morgan's dropping a little bit deeper. And it seems whatever Forest do at the moment, there's purpose to it. There's a rationale and a logic to it. And it's wonderful to see, especially after so many sort of fallow years where we were a club that had no identity at all. So I think Anthony Elanga at the moment is summing up this idea that, human beings, they have good days and they have bad days. And and Anthony, as we'd all like to do in our lives, is keeping those days when it doesn't quite go right to a minimum and the days when it goes exceptionally well to an optimal level. He was absolutely superb on Saturday. Brian Clough said about Trevor Francis, he was the instant man on a football field. TF could do stuff, game was over in seconds. Anthony did that on Saturday. And actually, it's a stretch to compare him to Trevor Francis, but that's how good he was, in my view.
figuring us out and stopping us are two different things, Dave.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone in the Premier League doesn't understand our template.
Absolutely not.
Being able to stop us is something else. And again, talking with my Arsenal mate, he's so frustrated. I mean, don't get me wrong, Nwaneri is a phenomenal talent, right? But he's frustrated right now with Martinelli, to an extent, Nwaneri, because the Arsenal wingers, when they get the ball, they head straight to the byline. Whereas the Forest wingers mix it up. And what you see our wingers do a lot is cut inside. And Elanga's first goal was a great example of that this weekend. They isolate their men one-on-one and then come inside them so that they can get that shot on goal or potentially get deflection, as Callum did against Man City, to aid that strike. One of the last point as well, Max, regarding Elanga, the other Anthony, who essentially limited Elanga's opportunities in the Man United team. Purchased him for £81 million. That's 5 Anthony Elangas. That's madness. The VFM that we've gotten out of him, and obviously Callum Hudson-Odoi, the aforementioned Ola Aina, almost anybody you want to mention in the team. You know, you could bemoan the money we spent on Anderson and Wood, or at least you could do when we first purchased them. You can't anymore. But even they look like bargains. And Anthony Elanga is one of the best of the season in terms of VFM.
Yeah, absolutely. And a fun fact about him as well, since joining Forest, there is one other player in English football that has had more goal involvements than him, and that's Chelsea's Cole Palmer. So there you go. He's second to him, second to the best, and he's doing very well and excellent to see. Funny comment, obviously, from our Aussie Dave that says Elanga has been good ever since Mark and Max said he should have been dropped for silver. That's why me and Mark don't play football. That's why we're not in charge of Forest.
Our criticism was warranted.
Yeah. And also you have to give a little bit of credit to Jota Silva when he came in. All right, Jota Silva isn't Anthony Elanga, but he got on the score sheet again on Saturday and he gave Forest their 4th goal, which is as crucial as ever with goal difference needed. So there you go. Yeah, no, I agree, Mark. This comment from Ian that says, the positive now is that we can start with a consistent 11, but switch tactically at any time during the game. It's very hard to set up against. Kieran says, the morale and hard-working team ethic is why we are 3rd. Yes, we have bad blips, but who doesn't? This one from Mark, we can score goals and multiple scorers, 7 against Brighton, 4 Wolves, 3 Newcastle, 4 Ipswich, etc., etc. Yeah,
Mark's
some really good points.
Such a good point.
Yes.
Good job, Mark.
Yeah, all Marks talk sense, don't they? Of course they do.
Great comments. All of those are great comments, and all of those speak facts.
Yeah, absolutely. No, agree, and keep them coming as well. We will be live for another 15, 20 minutes or so, depending on how long we go for. It depends what time Dave's got his birthday cake coming out, so we shall see. I mean, Mark, when we talk about Forest and this season and the away form, you know, it wasn't that long ago since we were looking over our shoulder last season. We were worried wherever we were going away from home, and I used to talk to you every single week about away form. This season, it's just completely different, and we go into not just away, but any game full of confidence now. And for Forest to be 3 goals up at half-time against Ipswich, there's just that almost relaxation now, and you don't think that Forest are going to do a Forest, and that does show how far we've come as a football club on and off the pitch in a way. Yeah,
I mean, oftentimes teams will set differently home or away. To Dave's point, we don't really do that. We have a way of playing, and in fact, arguably, the way we play is more set up for traditional kind of away game mentality, right? Sit deep, absorb the pressure, and then hit them on the counter. But we're not overly rigid. Again, I think it was maybe Mark or one of the other contributors there with the messages pointing to the fact that we can mix it up. Right, we have guys who can come off the bench. We can change the shape. We can change the personnel. It gives us a slightly different take on things. We have strengths. We have strengths and weaknesses across the team, but we have such a deep squad now that we can address those things at any given moment. We're not the perfect team. I mean, I think there's still some recruitment that needs to be done, particularly in preparation for a Champions League campaign this next year. But yeah, we look good. I think we look equally good home or away, and arguably, like I said at the top, possibly even better away because, again, we're set up in that traditional absorb and counter kind of model. But either way, they're fun to watch, man. They are so fun to watch right now. I'm fully in love with this version of Nottingham Forest. And this is someone who's been following the team since '79. And this is one of my most favourite iterations of this famous club.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's talk Morgan Gibbs-White, and deservedly so. He gets an England call up. We didn't do a podcast to discuss the...
We were pouting.
Yeah,
to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely, when I read the team announcement, and look, I'm confident in Thomas Tuchel. I think he'll hopefully do a good job as England manager. But I just thought the squad announcement was, well, I mean, it was just shocking. I mean, it's just Jordan Henderson in there. There's just questions that need to be asked. Anyway, Morgan Gibbs-White gets a last-minute call-up late last night. Sky revealed it. Cole Palmer's injured. That could come into it. But anyway, Morgan's called up and he's reported for duty today at St George's Park. Before we get on to him deservingly being called up last minute, late, but at least it's done now. 11 direct goal involvements in his last 17 Premier League games. That's since getting an assist for England duty the last time for Morgan Gibbs-White. So I thought he had an excellent performance. And Dave, you were in the away end when the fans were kind of singing his name. He turned, he gave him a round of applause. They were then saying, singing kind of England's number 10, weren't they? And then it was Thomas Tuchel. I'm sure you can figure that bit out. Yeah, and he turned round and he did kind of the shrug of his shoulders as almost why. I mean, how good was he on Saturday, and how much does he deserve this England call up? I mean, why Thomas Tuchel overlooked him at the start? I'm just kind of baffled by that, as I'm sure you are.
Yeah, the perfect answer is to do talking with your football, and Morgan did that. Morgan's a class act, a class guy. He's really grown into leadership and captaincy this year, Morgan, as for me. He dealt with it beautifully, right? Because, a lot of ours, as they're prone to do, because that's what football supporters do, took it very, very personally. Me, I was like, oh, well, he'll have a fortnight with the lads. He can have a rest. He can have some time with Brittany and Grayson. I think he's got another little one on the way, and he can have some time to just recharge his batteries, because he put so much in. But, he's got his call up now. I don't, maybe it was Cole Palmer, but maybe Mr. Tuchel's a little bit taken aback by the strength of the reaction, not just from our lot, but actually across the footballing territory, really. The likes of Paul Merson and people like that really getting quite vexed about Morgan not playing. So, that was an interesting subplot on Saturday, really, when we were in Portman Road. And he just conducted himself brilliantly. I think he's a great personality in a dressing room full of personality. The most personality-centric dressing room in the country. The funniest, the most likeable, the most eccentric. I mean, I've looked at Arsenal recently. I bet their conversation, the tumbleweed blows through their dressing room. Manchester City, the hours must just simply fly by. Forest are funny and likeable. They're like a gang, right? And Morgan is kind of in the middle of it. Remember when he got his 100th appearance thing and they were all in the dressing room taking a mick out of him, you know what I mean? And it's just wonderful. And he was signed as a talisman with a talisman's fee, and he's adopted the role and he's embraced it. And he knew what was afoot, and his bond with us, on Saturday was there for all to see. And the shrug, well, your guess is as good as mine at the end. I just thought was brilliant. In regards to the game, he almost wanted to make a statement, and he did it. I want the ball. Give me the ball. I'm the leader of this team. I'm the leader of this club after Nuno. You bought me for responsibility. Give it to me. He dropped deep. He quarterbacked. I love him when he's in that quarterback role. And then he's dropping deep and spraying passes like he did the week before to Callum with that wonderful ball against City, right? And then this week, he's doing that. But then right at the end, he pushes forward because Yates has come on. Yates wins it on the edge of Ipswich's box. And Yates' ball to Morgan was beautiful. Morgan's the furthest forward. And he buys his time and he waits for Jota Silva to arrive and he score a goal. I thought he was outstanding. But what I loved about him was his appreciation and perception of the whole situation around this not having been picked. And he just dealt with it in a brilliant way. He showed class and he showed dignity. I'll let my feet do the talking. I'll keep my trap shut. He almost said, yeah, Mr. Tuchel, if that's your opinion, that's fine. I'll just get on and do my business for the club that employs me, and I'll do it to the best of my ability. I thought it was a statement of a performance. And I thought I loved him, and I do love him. I love all of them deeply, but I love him even more after Saturday. It was an outstanding thing. And then it was almost kind of, he did it in the right way, and then he got his reward in the right way, you know what I mean? And I just thought it was fantastic, mate. Absolutely fantastic.
When Dave was saying funny, likeable, eccentric there, I thought he was talking about the podcast.
That should be our catchphrase, Mark.
Dave skimmed over. I mean, he had a great game, but his most important recent assist has to be that one there with his misses. Congratulations.
Yeah.
The pending second arrival. That's fantastic. So,
absolutely.
Congratulations to the Gibbs-White family.
Great stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Congrats. I mean, just wanted to kind of touch on...
It's a fruitful time for Nottingham Forest, is it not? Bless him.
Just wanted to touch on Jota Silva. Actually, we mentioned him a little bit at the start, but before we wrap up and we close with our Champions League thoughts and Player of the Season, all of that malarkey, I just thought great, decent finish from him, and he comes on and he did a job. I thought his energy was up there, and that's what Jota Silva is there for on the bench. Mark, he's not. With all due respect to him, he's not a Champions League player. He's not a top 6 player. He's a player that you can bring on there when he can still do a job, and I thought he did a very good job on Saturday. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and every squad has those players. Unless you're Manchester City and every single one of your 25 is a world beater because the rules don't apply to you and you're allowed to spend money like water, the rest of us have to cut our cloth accordingly. And so you're going to have, the first 15, 16 players that you expect to be absolutely top brass. And then the rest of that 25 is going to be made up by players who can step in and can, pinch hit, do a shift, be closers, whatever you want, whatever term you want to use. And they're still high quality players. Of course they are. Jota Silva is an excellent player. If he left us tomorrow, he'd still find a place to play his trade in the Premier League. There'd be teams that could pick him up. Now, maybe they'd be a little lower down the table, mid-table, perhaps, bottom end, but he'd still get a run out in the Premier League. Don't even question that. So he's contributing to the process here at Forest. And as Dave said, he's not only contributing on the field, quite clearly he's contributing in the dressing room as well. It's very easy for players. I mean, we saw it. I'm not going to harp on this because it's been all over social media, but Moreno, right, at the final whistle, getting the way from the crowd. I mean, every player, when you're not starting or you're not even getting on, can throw a Mardy, can really disrupt the dressing room. Can rally their mates around and be like, this sucks that this manager doesn't know what he's doing. He isn't playing us. The 3 or 4 of us can be right ticked off. And they can really upset the apple cart. There's none of that happening at the City ground. And Jota Silva, I think, is a great example of a player who's like, whenever you need me, I'm ready to step in and do my bit. And we saw that on his way back to the dressing room, didn't we? In the footage went online afterwards. As he goes to nip into the dressing room, he takes a moment to turn to the camera. Thanks, Morgs. Right? Yeah. So that's his attitude. And fair play to him and everyone else, like Moreno and everyone else in the same boat.
Yeah, no.
Willie Bolly the same. Harry Toffolo the same. Ramon Sosa the same. Wayne Hennessy. They are. I follow British Lions tours abroad, and Gatland and Farrell and these guys who've taken British Lions teams to New Zealand, Australia, South Africa always say the squad is only as good as the guys who aren't getting regular game time. Our lads have been utter gentlemen, all of them, and that's why it's a huge credit to them.
Toff's name gets thrown down a lot. It's bizarre. Like, he's nowhere near. He's barely near the bench anymore. But players have nothing but good things to say about him and the energy he brings into the dressing room, the locker room, as we would say out here.
Yeah.
And I would be amazed that when his contract's up, if he isn't still part of the club in some way, shape, or form, whether it's his work around mental health and helping players with mental strength, whether it's a role on the coaching staff, he clearly is a top quality pro and has a respect of his teammates.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure, both. Some really nice points. Harry Toffolo, love the chant about him as well. I won't sing it, but I'm sure we all know it. I think it's great. I just think it's brilliant. I think he's become a real, not club legend, but someone that I think is has just fitted in well, and the Forest fans love him. So yes,
one of the top players.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's wrap up, shall we? And just kind of reflect on where Forest are and look ahead to these next 9 games, 12 games, if you want to include possibly getting to the FA Cup final mark. 2 back-to-back consecutive wins for Forest, of course, against City, and then Ipswich at the weekend. 5 points clear of Chelsea, 6 points clear of City. Dave, the Champions League is Forest's to lose, really. It's getting close, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always been a little bit whoa. Let's take our time. But I came out after the deserved beating of City. It should have been more than 1-0, and I thought, yeah, we look like we're ready for it. And then, you can only play what's in front of you, and they went and did it again at Ipswich. A tricky fixture. Ipswich would have been saying, well, they're favourites. We've got nothing to lose. Kieran McKenna is a guy I've got great respect for, and they've got some really good players at Ipswich. If they can hold on to them, they're going to go down. If they can hold on to Ipswich, unlike Leicester and Southampton, who I think are League One sides in effect really at the moment, I can see Ipswich being, a nuisance to people in the Championship. But with our lads, they're just going about their business. And as you say, Max, we've got ourselves into such a good position. I was giving me 17 at the start of the season. I want everything low key. I don't want to make big statements that mean I get clipped later in the season, because that's not the way I've been brought up. It was always like, my granddad was a brilliant footballer. My dad was a top sportsman, right? Keep your feet on the ground and don't get ahead of yourself. Nuno will be saying Brighton in the quarterfinal. He's existential. He won't know that anything exists beyond that, right? And that's why I love Nuno so much. He kind of, when I look at our club, and there's days when I kind of think, oh, it's not going so well, I just look at our manager and think, yeah, there's a guy I can identify with. The fixtures to come, Max, the 9, I've looked at them, and they're all winnable if Forest can keep doing what they're doing. I think the point that was made before about so many wins and so many draws, I think is apposite. I see 2 real hefty tests in front of us in the menu that's left. Aston Villa, this new Asensio Aston Villa, he's a superb player, that guy. Yep. They're going to be really difficult to beat at Villa Park that Saturday tea time. Champions League quarter-finalists, and a phenomenal effort by them, by Villa. They could take on PSG, which I don't really think they'll beat PSG. I think that's a monumental task for Forest, that. And I think Palace at Selhurst Park, the 4th last game, is going to be really, really difficult. Mateta, stitches or no, is going to be back. Eze's quality. They're a really well-coached side. Glasner is a top coach. I think
thought you were going to say Chelsea, Dave. I really thought you were going to say Chelsea.
Do you know what, Mark? I look at the rest. Brentford will be difficult away from home. I think, at our place, I think they'll be difficult. I think Manchester United are just on a slight upturn. I think, that'll be a tricky one. Chelsea, I fancy us to beat Chelsea. Chelsea have no personality at all. $1 billion spent on, you could get it's like they spent $1 billion on an empty cardboard box, right? They have nothing about them, Chelsea. Who in Chelsea's dressing room has got any personality? Cucurella and Enzo, but they spend all their personality is kind of negative, arguing about everything. They've got nothing to say. I think they're a one-man team. If Palmer plays, they are to beat. Palmer doesn't play, we'll beat them, right? Leicester should beat them. Be a bit of a humiliation if we don't give them where they are and where we are. Tottenham, yeah, they've got Van der Ven and Romero back, but they're all over the place. So I look at the West Ham. West Ham last away game might be tricky, but I think they're all winnable. And the way Forest are, and the way Forest are conducting their business at the moment, and sticking to that identity, and the most humble group of lads, because Nuno won't allow anybody to get ahead of themselves. I think the others are winnable. I just think that Villa game on the 5th is going to be a cracking match, right? One team that is Champions League, one team that has Champions League pretensions, right? I think it's going to be a great game. And I think Palace, the way they're playing at the moment, is going to be, if we get something at Selhurst Park, to be honest, the Villa and Selhurst Park, out of all of them, the ones that, right, I'll take a point from that now. But, and then like Mark says, there's the possibility we beat Brighton, then we've got a Wembley trip. We then, my dream would be to beat Bournemouth in an FA Cup final. I think that'd be great. Slay that bogey.
No, Dave. The stress of even having Bournemouth in the cup final, giving them just that club. We never. Don't. Do you know? I actually watched a video it was clipped off social media. I think it was Alex Griffin, who's an Ipswich YouTuber. Fair play to him. And he asked Forest fans on Saturday, "Who's your most disliked club?" And you had like a few saying Leicester, quite a lot saying Liverpool, and then you had quite a lot saying Bournemouth.
Yeah. It's just that bogey. And the good thing is we don't have to play them in the last night. I think just to summarise, what our lads have done is beyond belief. I never in a million years saw this coming. But they've got themselves into a great position. And what they're doing, they're convincing, sceptics like myself that it can be done. And that is to their huge credit. The spirit and the family atmosphere inside that dressing room and around that stadium then draws all of us in, is their greatest asset. And if they can use that, they can pull off the unthinkable. And at the moment, I mean, okay, Liverpool are going to win the league. They were really kind of. I watched Liverpool yesterday. They didn't really give a good advert for the Premier League as a league of quality yesterday. Liverpool, they're going to be champions, right? We could end up being the most talked about team this season, and wouldn't that be wonderful for us? Up from parochial point of view.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate. Absolutely.
Mark,
yes, you can hear it. Okay, all right. That's all you're going to say. I mean, Mark, can Forest surely won't mess this up? I mean, I honestly think that Forest are going to finish in the top 4.
Well, don't be ridiculous. We're more than capable of messing this up.
I know. But then you just feel like, based on the evidence so far we've had this season, and we talk about Forest. Yeah, Forest won't do a Forest, Mark. No,
we're in Europe. Take that to the bank. It's just in what shape and form now. 5 wins from the remaining 9. Probably 4 wins from the remaining 9, and we're in good shape for the Champions League. But I think if we get 5 wins, we're good to go. And
and it's there, and the Champions League music's playing. I haven't got a sound effect for that because we probably get copyrighted and shut down if I did that. So got to be a bit careful. Right, I think that finishes us very nicely. 47 minutes talking all things Forest.
Well, Max, before we go, my shoulder's a little stiff, and I'm wondering if you can recommend a PT company might be able to help us out.
Yeah, in fact, Dave Astbury. Dave, talk to us about if you're watching this version of the podcast, if you're listening, I recommend you go over to YouTube or Facebook and give us a watch, and you can see Dave's wonderful woolly hat that he's got on. Dave, give as it's your birthday, mate, your birthday present from us is a chance. It's like Ken Bruce on Popmaster, and he used to give you 30 seconds to do a shout out, and everyone would take half an hour. So Dave, 30 seconds on the clock, mate. Tell us about the PT business.
Max, hang on a second. Did the check clear first? We don't do free sponsorship on it.
All cleared. All right.
It's in the post. It will arrive. I'm the oldest PT in Britain. I think I might be.
That should be your strap line.
Maybe the oldest personal trainer, level 3 qualified. Maybe the oldest one in Pure Gym, which is like global these days. I think there are 420 odd gyms in this country. I qualified because I needed something to do. Having lost mum and dad, I've been looking after them. Needed something to do. Decided to do this. The guys in the gym here at Etox are great mates. Kobe and Andy said, "Yeah, give it a go, Dave." I've given it a go, and I've got a bunch of clients now who pay me to coach them, and it's a joy. It's absolutely brilliant. I love it. I mean, if you want, I'm looking at the time. We've done 48 minutes, and I was kind of thinking we could get to 61. And then the City Ground could give me a round of applause for my birthday because I'm 61. But I think I've gone on too long.
Don't ask for too much, mate. Yeah.
So yeah, it's all going well, and it's called Dad Coaching. If you're out there, to be honest, Max, I'm looking to specialise in anybody sort of in their 50s who may have had a hip replacement in recent times, mate. You know what I mean? If they want to give me a call, I'm there for them.
That's my dad, if you didn't know. So there you go.
Harry Toffolo might be along in a bit, Dave.
I think Harry would do.
Harry Arter, maybe. Harry Arter. We could keep going. Yeah.
I would. I definitely would take.
Who else has had a long? Can you remember Matty Fryer? Can you remember how long he was out for? Yeah, that was the longest ACL ever, wasn't it, at the club? I think Fawaz forgot he was paying him.
He made a poor sale. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? We've mentioned Harry Arter, and I use Harry Arter, like, a couple of seasons ago, we spent a lot of time talking about Harry Arter, and now here we are. And I think Nuno's greatest gift, amongst the spirit and the humility that he's fostered, he's clipped the squad down to manageable proportions, but increased the options. And I just think it's astonishing, mate. And if you think back 2 years ago, we were a bit of a laughing stock for 30-odd signings. We were a bit of a laughing stock because Harry Arter was basically getting thousands of pounds for, pushing a trolley around Astbury in Mapley or wherever it was, And here we are. And I just, if you're a Forest fan at the moment, and let's be honest, us three and the thousands, maybe millions out there, we've had some fallow times where we've not had a lot to talk about. And here we are. To be honest, a big problem I've had is getting my head around all of this season, really. But bless our lads. They're the most wonderful group of lads, honestly. And I absolutely adore them, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. And quickly before we go as well, I'm going to give a bit of a mention. There's no football this weekend, so what more could you do? You could get down to Forest women versus Stoke women in the FA Women's League Cup final, which is at the Bescot Stadium in Walsall. If you can't get down there, then alternatively, you can turn your radio on FM, or you can do Freeview 712 if you've got a telly, and you might just hear a familiar voice within me for BBC Radio Stoke. I am hosting the coverage on Saturdays. It's quite a big moment, so obviously I've done lots of stuff for Forest, and it's been great doing it. I'm very grateful to the Forest family. They allowed me a bit of a platform to do Match Day with Max, then now to take over this podcast. I'm hosting for the BBC for the first time on Saturday, so it's a big thing. It's on BBC iPlayer, BBC Sport, and you can listen on Freeview and hopefully albeit FM, but you can listen to those two. And there's a commentary team that Radio Stoke have set up, former Stoke player as well, women's player, ladies player, so it's bound to be a good one. Stoke are flying there, 5 points behind Forest at the top, and Forest are unbeaten this season. Marinakis has invested a lot of money into the ladies' side. We've talked to Holly a lot on the podcast. Mark, you know her as well. She'll be there, I'm sure, in fine voice. And if you're at a loose end on Saturday, try and get down to the Bescot. It's called the Poundland Community Stadium now. So there you go, Bescot Poundland Community Stadium. If you can't get down there, tickets are cheap, then put your Freeview on your telly, or listen to the BBC Sport website and listen to BBC Radio Stoke's coverage. And hopefully, I don't swear or say anything wrong. You never know.
Congratulations. I mean, that's mega. I know Dave and I are super proud of you. That's fantastic. But I do want to pull you up on one thing. We would never dream as Forest men's team fans of saying, if you're at a loose end, if you're free, get yourself down to...
Yeah, true, Mark. Good point.
This women's team, I mean, they are phenomenal. I've been following them for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Had their previous coach on my former podcast a couple of times, as well as some of the players. Absolute solid gold. When Dave talks about how well we're presenting ourselves to the world right now, on the men's side of the house, that extends to the women's too. They're crushing it in the league. They're in a cup final. It's not about if you have a bit of time. This is Nottingham Forest. So however you support this women's team, support them, and then, support Max Hayes at the same time.
It's smart. What the girls are doing in their own way mirrors what the lads are doing, right? Absolutely. And it's I went to a do early in the season, and I think it's Nat Johnson was there, and she spoke beautifully. Mm-hmm. And she sat with Yatesy, right? Mm-hmm. Ryan spoke as Yatesy always does. Nat Johnson was an absolute credit, and I think what the girls are doing is fantastic, because football is for everyone, right? No matter who you are.
Yeah, I agree, Dave.
This game belongs to everyone. Football,
right.
And he meant it. So if Cloughie says it, you can't argue with it, because Cloughie is God, right?
And they beat Derby. They beat Derby 2-0 in the last game, so you got to love them for that too.
Yeah, and then we've got the netball girls doing their stuff, right? Now I've never really watched netball much, but I'm going to watch our girls when they're on Sky. So I think as an organisation, Nottingham Forest at the moment, I don't think it's been as good as this for a long, long time. We must cherish it, all of it.
Yeah, no, spot on. Lovely points both. As Mark says, if you want to go on Saturday, then the tickets are available. It's definitely going to be a good one. So Forest flying, and long may it continue, both the men's, women's, netball, and everyone associated with the club. We shall see you for our preview of... No, who are we playing? We're not playing anyone this weekend. That's me on autopilot. So we might see you next week. We'll do a bit of a... we might do a mid-season award thing. Leave it with me, or I might get Aussie Dave to name his favourite team from Forest in the 1962, and he can chain himself to a radiator whilst doing it. So
Jack Burkett, Billy.
Oh, Dave, don't. Oh,
Colin Addison, John Barnwell, the great Alan Hill. The legendary Alan Hill.
All the Forest players down the years with tenuous and...
Terry Hennessy. Duncan McKenzie. God, I've started now. Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Yes. So there you go. We might do something like that. But thanks for tuning in. Appreciate all the comments live on YouTube and Facebook. We've had some really nice ones. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of our Irish listeners, of course. Have a good one, whatever you do. And happy birthday to Dave. Lots going on, isn't there? And as Forest still sit third in the Premier League, relegation is what they said. But it could be Europe for the Reds, couldn't it? We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.